Okay, this is like the third time I've tried to do this, but every time I pull up book report, I keep accidentally flashing my pen name, and I'm trying to at least keep somewhat sneaky about who I am. So I'm making some videos, and the hope is that I'll be able to give some generic helpful advice. And my hope isn't to hand feed a bunch of specific tips and tricks that are going to help you succeed in my genre. So I want to get that out of the way right at the beginning that, I'm not trying to turn you into somebody that I'm going to have to worry about, sharing my market with. And that's selfish and, be annoyed at me if you will. But I do like helping people. And I used to be a teacher, so I like teaching things, especially if it's something that I feel like I have useful information to share about. And I think that there's enough generic information in self publishing and writing that I could make videos like this and give things to people that are helpful without necessarily giving specifics that are going to turn you into my direct competition. It's almost like I would be happy for you to have a car. I just don't want you to have my car. So, um, in doing videos like this, I kind of want to show you how to maybe get a car. I just don't want you to be driving my car. So you can have keys, but not mine. And I will pull up here my book report, and hopefully this won't be failure number 4 where I flash my pen name somehow. Um, I'll probably realize there's something incriminating on here that shows my name or whatever after the fact. There is a Z there, so you can guess that my name starts with a Z, but I don't really care about my real name. So I started here so you can see that I have this set to the most recent rates so that I'm not trying to trick anybody. And so here's my last 30 days, and I've done, I'm totally okay with this number, but I've done better in the past. And so, like, if I pull up my all time numbers, take a minute. This book report's slow. And if you're not familiar with book report, this is just all the information from Kindle Unlimited. So it's not really like I had a 3-book series that was traditionally published, some foreign translations, and then there was like a mobile game deal at one point, and some audiobook stuff. So there's some other sources of income that don't show up here, but this is kind of my direct stuff that I've published and what it has earned from royalties and pages read. And so this is my gross income, which means that the money I spent on advertising, covers, and any expenses have come out of this money. So it's a big number, but it's a little smaller when you look at what I have kind of, I guess, walked away with. But I'm still happy with it. That's from 2016 to 2021. So to move back over here, so I don't risk putting my pen name out again and having to restart. I thought the first, maybe the most broad thing to talk about in a video like this would be when you're first starting out, you kind of, the main obstacle on your way is motivation and goals, and they're kind of tied together. And so I wanted to give my personal advice on the type of goal that I think is the most effective, and then also the type of goal that's going to have the most endurance to survive either failure or success. And maybe that's not the most exciting topic, but if you don't think it is, I guess I hope I can kind of convince you that maybe it's more important than you think. So I think the most common goal for a lot of aspiring writers is just to publish a book. So if you're at that beginning stage where you haven't written yet, you're probably telling yourself, I just have to finish the book. And I think that's fine. I think when I first started, that was kind of where I was too. My brother actually got me into it, and his advice was just write 5,000 words a day. Don't reread anything. Don't have super high standards for it. Just knock it out and get it finished. And I took his advice. I wrote 5,000 words a day, and I finished my first book in 7 days. It was 35,000 words. And I published it like 4 days later. I mean, it happened really fast. And so what happened for me was rapidly my goal of finish a book turned into publish a book, and then my goal of publish a book turned into have a book succeed. And I set an arbitrary goal of I hope my book gets into the triple digits. But the pattern here was that I was using goals to motivate myself, because Anybody who's ever tried to write a book or publish or self-publish, or tried to write their 5th book or their 10th book knows that probably the biggest obstacle in your way is yourself and that kind of inner voice that's asking you why you're even doing this. If you're failing, why do you think this book's going to be the one that does well? Or if you've never done well, why do you think anybody's going to want to read your book? And so you're going to always be having to deal with that kind of background noise. And I think a good, strong goal is the way you overcome that, or at least kind of endure it. So maybe at the beginning, it's great to have a goal that, you can be motivated by saying, man, if I had a book hit the top 100 or the top 1,000 or maybe just the top 100 in your subcategory, then everything would be great. You'd make all this money and you could quit your job and all the pieces would fall into place and your life would be perfect. And there's kind of a cost to setting a goal like that. And the cost, I think, is that the goal is really attractive and the outcome is really attractive because you can kind of romanticize it to be this utopia point. You finish your book and your 1st book does well, or your 8th book does well, but your goal is to do well. And then you do well, and suddenly you look around and you expect all these things to happen that you were, kind of using as carrots on a stick to motivate yourself to that point. And when those things don't start happening, you can feel a little bit of a slump set in, or a little bit of feeling of burnout. I worked so hard to get to this point, and I promised myself this point would be so many things, and it's not what it was supposed to be. So at the beginning, I don't think there's a whole lot of danger in having high, lofty goals, but I do think that as soon as you are fortunate enough, if you are fortunate enough to reach those goals, you have to kind of have it in your mind that you need to be ready to adjust your goal. Because the pattern I've seen a lot of people, myself included, go through is the first time you reach a goal, you just set the next goal a little bit beyond that, and then a little bit beyond that, and then beyond that. And it's kind of like a high jumper. If you want to jump, I don't know how high jumpers jump, let's say 5 feet, that you jump 5 feet, and then your next goal, like how good are you going to feel about yourself if the next week you go to do a high jump and you jump 4 feet 11 inches? You're going to feel like you failed because of your goal. And so your feeling and your outcome there is completely dependent on what you went into that jump expecting. So if you go in saying, I've jumped 5 feet and that's really impressive, most people can't even jump 4 feet, so I'm going to be happy jumping somewhere between 4 and 5 feet, then that's a healthier goal. And so to kind of flip that to writing and how you can adjust your goal in writing to maybe be more healthy and sustainable, the thing that I've found is the easiest goal to maintain and the most resilient goal to all outside forces is just making your goal that you are going to continue to produce. And so to put that in really simple terms, I think there's probably 2 ways you could break it down. You could say that my goal and my criteria for deciding if I'm successful is that I've written X amount of words per day, or that I've spent X amount of time per day writing. And for me, I've always kind of thought of 5,000 words as the benchmark, and I fail to meet that all the time. So it's kind of like a high benchmark. And then more recently, I found that it's kind of healthier feeling for me to think of it more in terms of the number of minutes I spend writing per day. So I'll do like a Pomodoro session in 20 minutes, and I'll make my goal to get 5 Pom sessions in per day. So 2 hours total of writing per day. And I think the psychology behind why that is a more sustainable and healthier goal is that if your goal is success, you can't exactly control that. You can put in the exact same amount of effort from one book to the next. One might succeed crazily and one might fail horribly. And you have to look at, okay, well, what did I put in? Did I mess up somehow and not put in enough? And the answer may be no. You did everything you were supposed to do, but your goal didn't work out. And then you feel crummy because your goal didn't work out, but you did everything you could. So what are you supposed to do with that? And that's kind of the cycle I've found myself in as I've adjusted my goals and as I've tried to kind of find a healthier way to exist in all this. And what I've found is that if you make your goal something about producing what you need to produce to put out your best effort, then you can enjoy the rewards that come with that effort without punishing yourself when those rewards don't come. You can say, for the last week, I have met my goal and I feel good about myself for that. And maybe the end result of meeting your goal for that week or that month isn't going to be success, but on a daily basis, you're not kicking yourself all day because you haven't met your goal. Whereas if your goal was to do well and it takes you a month to write a book, then after a month, you finish the book fails. Now you have to spend that entire month kicking yourself because you failed to meet your goal and hoping that your next book breaks you out of that. And that's sort of a cycle I've found myself in a bunch of times, where I could have 2 or 3 books in a row do well, and then the next one doesn't, and it feels horrible. It doesn't matter that I just did well 3 times because my most recent result was a failure. And it's a really unhealthy place to be, and it's kind of frustrating when you can make a bunch of money and you can have a bunch of money, a bunch of success, but then you can still feel like a failure on a daily basis. And I've spent a lot of time kind of trying to think about how to be healthier with my own thought process, and that's kind of what I've come away with, is that the real objective as a writer is to find something that you can control and make sure that that's your goal, not something that you can't control. So I think that's mostly what I wanted to say about that. And I've got a lot of other kind of broad things that I find interesting, and a lot of what I find interesting usually is about, I guess, like the psychology of being a writer, and then kind of the difference between my expectation and reality with how things have kind of worked out. So hopefully this was helpful, and hopefully I didn't ramble too long and repeat myself a bunch. But so I'll cut myself off here, and then if anybody finds this helpful, I'll try to make more videos like this in the future. So thanks for watching.